What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Sticks and Beers podcast. It's your boy, Bobby D, joined with Tyler Hickey via the Google Hangout and our special guest for tonight, Mr. Brian Tosti of the Texas Stars, my former housemate and teammate at Oswego State University. Toaster, what's up, my man?
Not too much, Bobby. How you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. We chatted with you last summer when you were in the ECHL.
Yeah.
With the Greenville Swamp Rabbits, right? That was your team name?
Yeah, it's funny how things change, like, a year down the line? Like, we were talking Stanley Cup 2017 at that point, or 2018 at that point, right? Something like that.
Yeah, we're recapping that season.
Yeah.
A year has flown by. You're moving on up the ranks, man. We must be a good luck for you, even though I think you already had the job by the time you were podcasting with us. But we'll take credit for it.
Hey, sounds great.
But for today's pod, we're just going to catch up with our main man, Toaster, for a bit, see if he has any fun stories in the AHL, not the ECHL anymore. Any fun dancing stories? Yes or no? Like in the ECHL? Anything like that?
No dancing stories, but I got a couple good ones, and one that, drops into our good friend, Mr. Jordan Binnington, who won the Stanley Cup. So there's some fun stuff there.
We'll hold on to that for a little bit, folks. And then we have to talk some NHL, so we're just going to go around the horn, and I'll give our combined three best off-season moves of the summer so far. And then we'll go to the opposite. We'll probably snake it back and do the worst off-season moves, in our opinion, so far. And then we'll get into sobriety check. It is my turn. I can't wait for it. We got a new fucking theme song. I'm ready to go. I got my sound bites ready. We're going to be testing them out off-season content style. And with that being said, Toaster, since you're our guest, it's time for some beer. But hold on. I'll cue you in.
Sounds good.
What's your first one that you got there?
We're going to go, anybody who knows where the Texas Stars are, we're in just outside of our good capital in Texas of Austin. Go with the Austin Amber.
Man,
the as soon as I came down here, this was like the first thing I went to a bar just for one of the nights, and this was the first thing I asked them. I was like, "You got anything local?" And they said, "Have you tried Austin Amber?" So this is it.
So it's like a Jenny Light up here, then, right?
Yeah, pretty much. But it's a good old amber. I love my amber ale, so I'm okay with it. 6% alcohol. Just enjoying the little taste of Austin. And then our arena is actually it's like 30 minutes outside of downtown Austin, in Cedar Park, and this place, Whitestone Brewery, is right up by us.
Mm-hmm.
And this is probably my favorite one. It's the Long Gone Blonde. Long Gone Blonde. Those are my two.
Okay.
Those are my two.
Hick, what you got over there?
I was up in Boston this weekend and went to Treehouse. So if you guys don't know, they don't distribute, so you can only buy there at the brewery. And like when we pull up there, there's people with dollies buying like 6 cases at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Just loading up their cars. You can only buy single cans, and they limit it for everybody. But so I got their Perfect Storm American Double IPA can, and then I also got their Double Ganger, which is a regular double IPA. So
I like the name.
Yeah,
great designs on the cans too.
Yeah, they got some really good stuff. I spent like $40 and got like one of each of their IPAs, and it wasn't too bad.
Well, I'm off-brand tonight. That's why I got the hat on to make up for my lack of beer. Someone bought one of my guitars on my way home from work, so I figured I'd rather make $700 than go buy some beer real quick instead of drinking. Bud Light Lime's the only beer that we have in our family fridge, so I figured I'll just drink carbonated water versus just
the carbonated
bad water.
Yeah, basically the same thing. So
man, you don't even have any Coors Light in your house, Bob? That's unlike you, man.
It's all out at the cottage.
Man.
Okay.
So Toaster, it sounds like you've already had those beers.
Just one.
Oh,
just
okay.
one. I just cracked one, so we're good.
Well, I mean previously.
Oh yeah, I love them.
the rating system at the Sticks and Beers podcast is, would you order it at a bar after your tasting?
Okay.
Because we sample so much and do so many flights where it's just like, you know what? I enjoyed that. I would buy it at a bar versus no, because I feel like that's the most simple and straightforward rating system you can have when it comes to tasting and getting beer. But you like both of those, so you're 2 for 2.
This one, like if you're gonna go to a bar, like most people, it's like, all right, I'll just have like, Bud Light, I'll have a Miller Lite. Like this is my go to it. I'll go to a bar and I'll just say, do you guys have Boston Amber on draft? Sounds great, I'll have it. And then Whitestone's like, there's actually, I haven't found a ton of places that actually have it on draft. So it's like my bring it home beer. The actual brewery has like a whole seated lounge area about around the corner from my apartment. So when I go in there, I have it there.
Sweet.
So yeah, definitely would get them.
So why don't you jump into the story that you were teasing earlier for us and for the listeners? What with Jordan Bennington,
So
what do you got going on over there?
Well, it's so funny. The everybody was all about watching him and seeing what he's been able to do this entire year, and it was so much fun for us to watch because we played him earlier in the season. We played San Antonio 14 times this past year, and at the start of the season before Christmas, we saw them a decent amount. We didn't see him until November, but we go down to San Antonio, and we're absolutely giving them the business. I think the game ended 7-3. And at the point that it all happened, it was like 7-1. So we start peppering them in the second period, and it's it's 4-0, 5-0, and all of a sudden we put in the sixth one, and I'm sitting there going, that's been like 3 goals in the last 5 minutes. They got to yank him. They got to pull him out of this one. At this point, he's not helping anybody. Even if none of them are his fault or whatever, you just have to get him out of there. And they keep him in. And sure enough, like a minute later, Joel Esperance goes down. It's like a battle in front of the net, and he pots a rebound. And the second he gets up, it's the video that everybody's been watching on Pennington on social this year, where he gets up and he takes a one-handed swing at Lespi's ankle and catches him kind of in the knee. And it starts this whole brawl. He yanks his helmet off, throws it down. I vividly remember him getting kicked out, and just all you could think of is like everybody was kind of against him right off of that. They were like, what kind of a guy would do that? I'm like, dude, he's losing like 7-0, 7-1. Just get him out of there. Somebody's just got to send him off. And so I kind of like understood what he was going through. But we played him 2 more times after that game, and he was unbelievable. And then when he got called up, I was like, well, like good for him. Like St. Louis is having a really tough year, but that's awesome for him. And I mean, the guy goes on and wins the Stanley Cup. It's just kind of funny to see the full circle of it all, especially early on in the season for us. We still had a ton of guys that got called up throughout the year, but that was like the one point where it was almost a turning point for him. He loses like 7-1, 7-3 or whatever. And then he turns it around and is just unbelievable down the stretch for them in late November, early December, goes to the NHL and never looks back.
Yeah, it's crazy how some of that works out with just goalies will just get lit up one night and then just go on an absolute tear.
Yeah.
Well, like it shows up like his stat, like he only had like 4 back-to-back losses in the time he was in the NHL and like playoffs. It just his mental capacity just to forget the previous game and just bounce back and get right back into the next one was probably the highlight of his, this little season.
Well, the hardest part for a lot of people too to understand with him is he was everyone was like, where did this guy come from? I mean, the guy had like a 5-year career in the minors. He was in Chicago. Like he had been in the Blues system. They knew what he was and they knew where he was going. Did they think he was going to be this? No, I don't think anybody knew that he was going to be this, but everybody knew the mental capacity that this guy has. Cause if you follow the hockey world, you knew who he was in the AHL.
Didn't he? is San Antonio even St. Louis's AHL team? Didn't he get loaned?
They switched. No, so they switched. So St. Louis has bounced around. Last year they didn't have an affiliate.
They split with Chicago or with Vegas last year.
Yeah, they split with Vegas and Chicago, and then Colorado. When the Eagles came in the AHL, Colorado Avalanche pulled out of San Antonio, and they went to the Colorado Eagles. So when they pulled out of San Antonio, St. Louis hopped in. But in the meantime, St. Louis didn't have anybody. They couldn't send him basically to Chicago. They ran out of roster space, so they sent him to Providence, and he was playing for the Providence Bruins all of last year. Or not last year, the year before.
That's what it was. I knew I heard something like that on XM radio, and I was like, dang, this guy is – it just doesn't make any – well, it does make sense because a lot of goalies are actually better in the NHL than they are in the AHL just because the defense is so much worse down there.
It's a different animal and a different style game too. Yeah. You can vividly see in certain aspects of the AHL game, there are certain matchups that make sense. There are certain lineup decisions that make sense, and the vast majority of the talent is very different, and that's why you don't have a lot of line depth across the board. So sometimes goalies have to make these ridiculous saves. They have to make one-on-one saves, but they have to make them against guys who could be at the NHL level. They also have to make them against guys who are just battling to stay on the roster or kind of depth guys in the lineup, which when you get to the NHL, even those depth guys are incredibly skilled. So it's not really like there's any parity from top to bottom across 4 lines.
How did you guys do as a season? Because this season before, when you were voicing for the ECHL, you guys lost to Toronto in the Calder Cup final, correct?
Yeah, that was. I walked back in, I walked in September to the organization, and that's all everybody wanted to talk about. It was, well, you guys made it to the final. How do you get back? And if you've watched anything, even in the NHL, you know it's hard. In the AHL, it's insane to try and get back to the finals, to try and have any type of continued success over year to year to year, because the roster is just completely different. And any year you could have an incredible team, and then all of a sudden you lose half your guys, either free agency or you lose them to the NHL roster. So this year was really interesting. We had a ton of young talent. We had some guys that really, really, really outperformed. I wouldn't say outperformed expectations, but you just watched these guys and you saw a guy like Joel Esperance emerge where he got a chance to play in the NHL because he scored 30 goals in the AHL this year. He had one of the best power play seasons by a rookie in like the last 2 decades. You look at guys like that. Ben Gleason really emerged in his first year pro, and this is a guy last summer who didn't have a team. And other guys that just got opportunities to make impacts. Rope Hintz, when he jumped up to Dallas, like it just took a matter of time for him to jump up. And then Denis Gurianov had an insane rebound of a year, where in the playoffs he wasn't that great, and this year he popped 20 goals. So it was a really cool way to watch this team, but there was a lot of rebuilding that needed to happen for the team through the off season. And going through this year, watching Dallas's roster kind of build up has been a completely different shift for how the roster might look next year.
Well, I was going to ask you about that with all the additions that the big club up in Dallas has made, i.e. grabbing some veteran older players. Do you think that's going to basically, like, Tyler and I are used to what Buffalo has been doing with trying to stack up the veteran presence in Buffalo to allow the young guys in Rochester to grow, develop, and flourish. Is Dallas trying to do that, you think?
Well, and that's the curious part. I think Dallas's mentality is less of, obviously there's the development portion. Dallas is in a situation right now to win. Like that's where the Dallas Stars are. That they've got one of the hottest. When he is on, Ben Bishop might be the best goaltender in the
and not injured.
And not injured. I mean, he's absolutely unbelievable. And the one thing that everybody watched about Dallas was they just needed a little bit of secondary scoring. And talk about trying to grab some guys who can help with that, and they did. And then on top of that, you've got really young emerging talent in your Ben Gleasons, your Joel Esperances. Nick Camano is a really good depth forward who really helps out the team and plays with a physical edge. In addition to all of that, you've got young guys like Ty Fellhaber, who was third in the Ontario Hockey League in scoring last year. Jason Robertson, who led the OHL in scoring last year. They're both coming into the system this year. Jake Ottinger out of Boston University is coming in. Joe Saccone out of Michigan. I mean, you line up all of these guys who are coming into the system, and you can see where they could. These are guys that could make the team out of Dallas. I mean, it's curious to see how the roster is going to shake up. And when you actually line up the lines for Dallas and Texas, I don't know. I'm getting excited just looking at the roster and keeping an eye on who could be here, who does impress, who throughout the year is going to get those first call-ups, who's going to be your Rope Hintz that gets an opportunity and then just grabs it. Or, like a guy like Taylor Fadoon who came in last year and we expected him to be with us for a little bit. All of a sudden, 3 games later, he's in Dallas and he's one of the best stories in the NHL last year.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler and I watched him in Rochester / Buffalo, and we're like, this guy's a pylon.
Yeah. And that's a thing. Like certain systems, guys might work out incredibly well. You could tell from the second he showed up. He scored in his first game with us. He had 3 points in 3 games with us, and then got the call up because Dallas was just decimated with injuries on the back end, and he just fit. They needed they needed a number 6 or number 7 defenseman. Right shot, the stars align for a guy like that, and he gets an extension out of it.
Yeah.
Tyler, do you got any questions for Toaster?
I guess obviously there's big skill change between ESL and the A. But what did you personally have to change to make that kind of like that step up? Is it just more name recognition? Is it kind of like that, or?
Yeah, I was actually, I remember going through it, and, you come out of H League, and I remember the same transition coming out of the USHL to go to the ECHL, and it's just a different game. It's different style. The USHL actually, while they weren't necessarily faster players, the plays don't develop the same way that they do in the ECHL. There are guys that have more skill and can make plays. The USHL, you're still like clanging and banging. It's a speed game, and it's kind of the college-esque game. When you make the jump from the ECHL to the AHL, that might be the harshest difference that I've ever seen outside of obviously the AHL, the NHL. The NHL players are the best in the world for the reason, and obviously there's a development portion that goes into the AHL. That jump from the ECHL to the AHL is 100% about speed. There are guys who have a ton of skill in the ECHL that just can't get up to that speed that you have to have in the AHL. Especially for a team like us, we had a lot of speed. We played with a lot of pace. So that was the biggest problem for me was, okay, slow down, less words, figure out how your pacing is going to go. Mm-hmm. You're flubbing over names because you're trying to speed up and you're trying to keep up with the pace of the play. And so the later into the season, it got a lot better. It got a lot easier. It got a lot more recognition on who you're facing. I mean, by the time we played San Antonio, I don't know, game 8, I threw my line chart over my head. It was like, you just know who the guys are, where they're from, how big they are, which side of the ice they play on. It's and at that point, what they skate like too. So those are kind of the hardest things to get through. But once you do, it completely changes the mindset of the job. That and the overall, I guess your own preparation changes. It's just depending on what you're doing and how much you're doing in the day, things change. Number one, from league to league, but also city to city. Mm-hmm. So my game day operations were way different, and my game day prep was way different in Greenville than it is now. So you just have to make those changes over time.
What's your favorite AHL barn to visit?
Oh, somebody asked me that earlier this year.
After your first year.
Gosh. Somebody asked me that earlier this year, and I had such a hard time. Personally, and I know it's going to sound like such a homer thing. I love our barn. I love our barn. If I'm picking outside of my own city, my favorite place to call this past year was probably Iowa. Really love the barn in Des Moines. Really good setup, and not to mention the staff up there is amazing. Joe O'Donnell, who's the voice of the Wild. Like you want to talk about a guy who knows exactly what he's doing. Joe O'Donnell's like one of the first people that you can ask questions to. He's been doing it for years. He was with the Houston Aeros, so he knows exactly what's going on in the league. That and their building is really great. Like they have a good setup. The press box is very isolated. Like you have your own little booth that you're actually set up in, and the sight line is great. You're not too far away. Yeah, Iowa's pretty good. Grand Rapids is a little high. Rockford was cool for me because that was where I interned after college. So all of a sudden I got to go back to that barn, and I was on the other side and got to see a bunch of people that I used to know, and so that was a fun one.
So I know you said you played San Antonio like 15 times. What's the scheduling like for the AHL? Because obviously our other AHL buddy on the pod, Rob Lapolos, who's the voice of the Binghamton Devils, we saw him in Rochester a bunch. But like do you guys play? Even though it's like the divisions are super weird in the AHL, but do you guys ever come like this far east?
So our division breaks down. So the way we're kind of on an island, and it's kind of odd for us because obviously the only team within striking distance is San Antonio. So outside of that, we used to be in the Pacific Division, but when all those Pacific Division teams came in, they were on a different games per season schedule than we were. We were playing like I believe it was 8 games more during the season than they would. We'd play a 76 game schedule. They'd play a 68 game schedule. So when you broke down the actual who makes the playoffs, it was based on percentages. It wasn't based off of wins and losses. So this past year, we switched to the Central Division. So we played teams like Chicago, Rockford, Manitoba. By the way, I left out Manitoba. That's also a really cool place to call a game because you're at the Bell MTS Place, and it's where the Winnipeg Jets are. Like it's just a really great building. But Manitoba, Grand Rapids, Iowa, San Antonio, that's our divisional breakdown. We play every team in our division, and we actually are pretty fortunate in not every team has an even split of how they play each team. We play every team in our division at least 8 times. San Antonio, we play 12. And this year we actually we don't have any games on the West Coast. We don't play any of the Pacific Division teams except Tucson. We play 4 times. Colorado, we play 4 times. And then we play Toronto and Wilkes-Barre Scranton 4 times each. So our schedule breaks down pretty evenly, and we kind of have this nice little space that we really play within. But last year we played every team out west. We played at least twice. Colorado was the only team that we didn't see during the season. We played Tucson 4 times, and then we had the same divisional breakdown that we did this season, but with San Antonio 14 instead of 12.
Is that all due to just the league trying to save money for travel?
I think it depends on how the presidents or the governors and the general managers kind of want to break down their schedule. I don't know exactly how that whole process breaks down of where we go and how we go and what I think you basically submit where you'd like to play. Like, do you have some opportunity? And at the end of the day, it is the league's call. They break it all down and they'll kind of dole you out where they see fit. But if you have the opportunity, like in the ECHL, I think it was once every 3 years they wanted you, if you were on the East Coast, they wanted you to make a trip out west to play the Idaho Steelheads, the Utah Grizzlies, any of those teams out west. They would want you to do it like once every 3 years. So ours was my second year. We went to go play the Colorado Eagles, and we played them in a 3-4 around Thanksgiving, and then we flew home. So, I think every league is different, and I just don't know the breakdown of how they decide everything.
Hick, you got anything, or else I got a couple more questions, and then we can move on into the next segment of the podcast tonight.
No, that's pretty much about it. And given,
I got a good story for you guys.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah.
So this was my favorite travel, and I say favorite because it was the worst travel story of the year. So we show up and we're supposed to play Milwaukee on like a Wednesday or something like that. So we show up in Milwaukee, and it was like a Saturday or something. We get to Milwaukee, we play, and then we got to go to Manitoba. And we have like something like 3 days before we have to be in Manitoba to play. So we play Milwaukee. The next day, we're supposed to fly out. It was during that whole like sub-zero storm that came across the entire U.S. that would just dropped everything, the polar vortex or whatever. And we were supposed to fly from Milwaukee, go into Minneapolis, and then fly to Winnipeg. We get into Milwaukee's airport. We're delayed by 2 hours. Ground stop in Minnesota. We then get to Minneapolis finally, and we get the whole team there. Our flight that night is canceled. They can't get us out. But there is another flight that's going to be going, and they had the option to put some guys on it. So we ended up getting 9 guys on that flight or something like that. We were supposed to catch a connecting flight. And I think it was like we missed our connecting flight, but we could get guys on a later flight. So all of us have, it's all of our player bags. It's all of our personal items. If you have, like, my broadcasting trunk is on that flight. And if they hit the connecting flight, they should be there. But we're trying to track all the numbers on our phone, and we're like, all right, where are all the bags? What's going on? So we end up getting stuck that night in Minneapolis. We get ready to go. The next day I walk up, and it's like a 2:00 flight. Walk up to the gate attendant. I'm like, hey, here's my bag number. Like, I just want to make sure that this is going to get on this flight because it has all of my clothes with it, like everything that I've got. We show up in. She says, yeah, not a problem. It'll get right on the flight. It'll be right up there. So we get on the flight. We get into Winnipeg, and it's late. Like, it's been a long day. We got delayed again. We finally get into Winnipeg. It's supposed to be like 6:00. By the time we actually get out of the airport, it's somewhere to the tune of like 9:00 at night. My bag and like 3 or 4 other bags are not there. I had no jacket. My jacket was included on this. Oh, and by the way, the reason I had to give it to them to put under the plane was because they didn't have enough overhead space. I had originally had it as a carry-on. So my jacket was included, that, all my suits, all my dress clothes. The only thing I had a button-up shirt, khaki pants, and that was it. And it was in Winnipeg during the polar vortex. It was like -20 out. And we had to then take all the bags from inside the airport that had to go through customs, bring them back out, throw them in the truck. And I was outside just like hucking bags into the back of this truck. We show up to the airport and whatever. They were like, yeah, we'll try and get it on the flight later that night. My bag doesn't show up until 3:00 on game day. I was in the same clothes for like 48 to 72 hours.
Oh, Jesus.
And it was just awful. And thank God that Winnipeg actually has all the buildings are connected, so you don't have to go outside that much. But to get into security at Bell MTS, you have to go outside and walk around the block to get into the actual security entrance. It was awful. It was the worst trip ever.
I think that's like in an epitome. Like, if you look up the grind of the AHL, that is what appears.
The only thing that missed was like a bus breakdown on the side of the road. That's all.
That's true. I mean, that's a horrible but fantastic story.
Yeah.
I just have a couple questions. One, were you at the Dallas Stars development camp? If so, how'd it go? And then two, do you get to go to like training camp or anything like that? Just from speaking with Rob Lapolis, like he helps at he wasn't at development camp this year. He was last year, but he gets to go to training camp, and when they have like scrimmages, he like is the play-by-play guy for their Facebook stuff.
Yeah.
Are you a part of that at all?
So Dallas has a really cool setup. I went up for development camp. I went up for one day, and then I actually flew out on vacation 24 hours later. So I went up and I did some interviews. Got to see everybody. For actual training camp, last year was different. Between prospect camp, which is in Traverse City, I didn't get to go to that because I had just shown up. I also think traditionally I don't actually go to that. But like actual training camp in Dallas is in Dallas this year. So I don't know if there's going to be like a, hey, head on up there, just, cover for the day or cover for 2 days or whatever. But again, I was so late to training camp last year that it was like, hey, get situated with your own job. So I haven't heard anything yet, but we'll see. It would be awesome to get up there and kind of see how everything goes on. The other problem with the way our training camp builds up is, our training camp happens. There's like a scrimmage over the weekend. They start training camp. And then like the following Saturday is when players officially report to Texas. So you have all of this set up over the course of a week. And in addition to everything that obviously Dallas is doing for their training camp, we're still trying to prep for our training camp and prep for our season down here in Austin. So I think if I went up there, it would probably be only for like a day, probably 2 days.
Gotcha. I was just curious.
Yeah.
I have a soundbite locked and loaded, which I didn't use for your story, but I'm going to do it because better late than never.
Not great, Bob.
I completely
not great,
missed opportunity there for me. But let's get into the next segment that we had pre-planned, which is the best offseason moves so far in our own opinions, and then the worst offseason moves so far in our own opinions. So, Toaster, since you're the guest, you can go first, last, middle. You could choose, but I'm going to override and say you're going to go first.
I'm going to go first. Okay. Yeah. Can I go like? I'll go first for the move I liked. Can I go third for the move I hated? Okay.
Yeah, we'll snake it.
Okay. So move I loved, and obviously it's the hometown. It's the hometown team for me. I love the Joe Pavelski signing. I think that might be one of the best.
I think a lot of people do.
Right, and it's just one of those. It's one of those signings that everybody can enjoy. At the end of the day, the thing that Dallas needed was a little bit of help for the big boys, and Dallas they have a lot of big boys. They know what they're doing up front. They don't necessarily need a ton of help, but anytime you can add a 30-goal scorer who can do it in his sleep, thanks very much. Especially for the number that they're getting him. And obviously Joe Pavelski isn't like a cheap buy, but the fact that they got some help with Corey Perry and they've also had some emerging young players like Jason Dickinson and Rope Hintz. Now, Joe Pavelski doesn't have to any type of carry the load. Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, and Alex Radulov can now actually expand on what they're doing even more. And at a certain level, they have so much depth with their centermen that they can just start moving guys around. And we saw last year how much Jim Montgomery knows what he's doing with a lineup and can move guys into the positions where they're going to succeed, and pick those pairs that are going to stick together and just start plopping centermen with them or start plopping wingers with them. I love the deal. I think Pavelski's absolutely going to be a home run for the next couple of years in Dallas. What do you guys think?
Tyler?
The biggest thing I think was just a term, and to get him that 3 years was great because he's 35 now. I think he just had a birthday. So, by age 38, he's probably not going to be 30-goal scorer, but 20, definite possibility. And then after that, it's, you can just walk away from him. You're not tied up long term. So, and yeah, that's exactly what they needed, like you were saying, just the depth scoring.
For me, the most important thing is their fucking power play now.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. On paper they might have like
you and I texted each other when all these were going down, and actually I think you tweeted it, and
I tweeted it.
I was like, how hilarious is it that Perry, and again a lot remains if he's healthy, but Perry's not even included in that top 5 if you consider their power play.
Yeah,
I mean, it's scary. I'll just go through like off the top of my head. Obviously, you mentioned like Ben, Sagan, Radulov, now Pavelski, and then you go to the defense, and it's Klingberg and Miro Heiskanen, and I know I'm forgetting other guys.
Estel
Lindell.
Lindell. Up front, you still have Rope Hintz, who played a huge part in the playoffs on the power play.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, Jason Dickinson is no slouch. And on top of those guys, Cogliano's still hanging around and is still you know what you're going to get out of Cogliano. For a second power play guy, that's not a bad look.
Yeah. But I mean, like, it's going to be hard to just pick who your PP1 is out of all those guys that you named.
Well, and you think of that, it's flexibility. Now Jim's got some flexibility of where he can move some guys around, and he can kind of figure out who he wants to plug in. And if somebody's having an off night, fine, sounds good. Like we've got other guys that can do it. Or, gosh, the way that Dallas had it last year with the amount of injuries, and you just never know what's going to come throughout the season. If you got to pull somebody for like a couple weeks, you're not hurting on the power play. You're not hurting 5-on-5 because you have such good depth across your top 3 lines.
The Dallas Stars should roll with what the team Switzerland did in the World Juniors and basically flip the umbrella behind the goal line and have like Radulov be the disher and then have Ben and Sagan on the half walls shooting with Pavelski in front and then just someone ripping bombs from the point.
Klingberg.
But based off of what they did, it was Jamie Benn who sat in front of the net. But like instantly, you move out of the way for Joe Pavelski, who has the most tipped goals, like ever.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Maybe that's the conversation. Maybe it is. Hey, let's put Jamie Benn on one side. We'll line him up with Rads. We'll line him up with Sagan. Rope, you're going to go on the second unit with Pavelski. We're going to line up Heiskanen on one point. We're going to line up Klingberg on the other, and then we're going to filter in some a little bit of help. I mean, really, there's a lot of possibilities for those guys.
Yeah, Dallas has been the Sticks and Beers podcast team for the past couple of years now. Of like, we get so excited about them in the preseason, and then they just lose in the first round or don't even make the playoffs.
Yeah.
But let's move on, Tyler. Who do you got?
So I got Doug Wilson convincing Kevin Labanc to accept a $1 million deal.
That was gonna be mine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was trying to go a little bit under the radar, but I mean, like, guy scored
56 points.
Yeah, 56 points out there. He had another like 10 or 12 in the playoffs. He's 23. He's young. He's got great analytic numbers, and he accepts $1 million. Like, you can take away probably almost 3/4 of that based on taxes, escrow and like agent fees and like living fees. Like it's like he's gonna make like $100,000 this year, basically. It seems like, and like it just. If there's gonna be an offer sheet, why can't somebody just give him? Oh, here's $3-4 million. They cost you a second round pick.
Yep.
And it was just absolutely like Twitter just exploded with that. They just like the players are probably just so mad at him personally, just because like everybody knows he's worth so much more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously he's got to get paid next year, and if he doesn't, then I assume like there's some unspoken handshake deal with his extension coming up.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. San Jose, like you're saying, it's a tough market to live in. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious if he just is – he's got to just be sitting back going, okay, I like it here. I want to be here. Hands are tied. We have the chance to make something happen here. Maybe I bite my tongue and I just say, listen, I'll just go out, produce. I'll go out, have a good year. and good Lord willing, these guys have my best interests at heart. And again, like you said, that's a bold move for a guy who did what he did last year. Most people want to take advantage of that.
Oh yeah.
I did hear him on NHL XM radio later that day, and he basically said exactly what you just said, Toaster. Like he straight out said, like, we have a window here, and I'm just taking a hometown discount basically to help out the team during this window for one more year so we could sign some more guys. And I'm betting on myself. And if I can repeat what I did last year, then I'll worry about that next paycheck later. But he was like, I just want to win. And
huge team guy.
I respect that, but at the same time, man, like, get fucking paid. You don't know, like, knock on wood, God forbid, nothing ever happens.
Right.
But like,
you have no idea.
Players shouldn't be making $1 million if you get a concussion and you're out for the rest of the year, or something even worse than a concussion. But
right.
Yeah.
We're not in the NHL, so I can't really comment.
Well, he's eligible to sign an extension January 1st, so
right.
You're looking for that in 2020. But I'm just looking at San Jose's cap-friendly page, and obviously they couldn't afford Pavelski, so they let him walk. But they still have $4.6 million left in cap space on a basically full roster.
Yep.
And so, I mean, obviously Thornton's probably going to be signing, and the rumors are that Marlowe's going to be there too. So,
well, the big loss too for them beyond the Pavelski of the obvious one is Pavelski. When you lose a guy like that, you're like, oh crap! Like, what are they going to do? The guy who they lost that's so under the radar is Jonas Donskoy.
Yeah, good middle six guy.
Him gone opens up a world of possibilities for LeBanc, and it's going to give him a lot of opportunity, but it's really going to the rest of their top six is really going to have to step up because what did he have? 17 tucks last year, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah,
like he had 39 assists or something like that.
Yeah, so. Like I mean, that's tough to replace for a guy who, now again, he wasn't making nothing, but like good on Kevin LeBanc to realize like, hey, we're going to need a little help here if we're going to want to keep it up what we're doing.
Donskoy was analytically one of like the best defensive forwards in the league, so we'll see how
beyond the points he put up plus all of his defense. Yeah.
Were you going to say something, Tyler?
Oh, I was saying, just looking at the numbers, that they're spending $34 million on forwards, and they're spending $32 million on their defense core. So, that's outrageous.
Here's the biggest problem for them. What happens next year when they got to pay 11.5 to Carlson, 8 to Burns, 7 to Vlasic, Dylan, Heed, Prout, they're all unrestricted free agents. Like they're in
the same exact situation basically next year.
Yeah, they're in a lot of trouble. So again, hey, doors wide open, Kevin LeBanc. Like, you have a good year, you've got the opportunity to make some cash.
Yeah,
absolutely. For me, my best offseason move so far, obviously I have to be biased, is the Devils trading for PK Subban. People might not agree with it, but when you look at exactly what the Devils have lacked, even like off the ice, it's amazing for New Jersey because it actually brings some attention to the team in the Tri-City market. PK had a down year last year, but everyone's like, oh, he's bad now. And it's like, he was hurt half of the season last year. And do you not look at every other season he had before that where he's won a Norris Trophy and he's consistently been one of the best defensemen in the league since he's come into the league? He's only 30 still. And basically, we signed him to like a 3-year, $9 million deal. And he's going to be back to being a top pair defenseman, which is what I think sort of held him back a little in Nashville, especially numbers-wise. But from what I've seen on social media, he's loving New Jersey already. He's loving that he's close to New York City and can do his personal stuff. So that's my best move of the offseason so far. Like I said, Tyler took my first option.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, you didn't even mention, like, the biggest part is like they basically gave up nothing for him.
Oh, yeah, that too. Yeah.
It's good. It works out for both teams, I think.
I got to be honest. Like, I totally agree that there's obviously there's a superstar effect that helps with PK. There's There's a huge personality thing that he brings to the locker room. He's going to lighten the load a lot on a group of guys that kind of like, not that they're under heat, but it's like, hey, this guy's been around. He's going to keep it light, but he's also going to expect a lot of things out of this team.
Yes.
I think it's going to help him a lot in that regard. The flip side to that, I don't know that New Jersey can handle more turnovers on the blue line, and that's exactly what PK offers to them on the back end. He does give them a lot of points up front, and I love that aspect of his game that he can contribute up front. To me, I don't even think that's the best move New Jersey made. I think the Wayne Simmons move is the best move that they made this offseason. Grabbing him for
yourself.
What?
Explain yourself.
Getting him for 1 year.
Yeah.
Wayne Simmons he's gonna bring the other side, like we were saying about PK. He's gonna bring a lot of intangibles. Wayne Simmons is gonna bring those, and yes, it's a $5 million deal for 1 year, but for New Jersey, that's a huge win. That's a one and done. If it works, great. Pay the man. Get him there for like another 2 years. See what he can do. See if he can help groom some of these young guys like your Jack Hughes of the world, and see if he can help them kind of get through the first 2 years of their contracts. And he's going to add a little bit of physicality that probably New Jersey could really enjoy having up front.
Absolutely. Well, I agree with everything you said. I think PK is more of a valuable move. But
the only thing I'll take away from that on the PK thing, because I think it's a good move. I like it for New Jersey. The only thing I'll take away, I think those pieces that they gave up are more valuable than you guys are going to think. And again, I might have a bias because I watched Jeremy Davies play when he was in Bloomington. Like this kid's sick. This kid is filthy. This kid is filthy. And I think come a couple of years down the line, you might have a guy who can really help round out not only your second power play, but help really add some good offensive production on your back end.
We shall see. I do like Wayne Simmons being able to like play down low and create space if he plays with a Nico or a Jack Hughes.
Well, that's the one thing that they need. They've got a lot of talent up front. They just don't have the time and space to mess around with the puck. Like they have nothing. And again, that may help. PK is going to help with that too. He's going to help separate a lot of defensemen off their mark or wingers or wherever he's going to be. He's going to separate a lot of people from their position and give guys opportunities to be open back door.
I agree. You guys ready to snake it back with some worst moves of the offseason so far?
Lead it off.
Take it off.
I have a collection of
Dude, I think we all do.
And for me, it's giving long-term, almost max contracts to players like Brandon Tanev and Colton Sissons, who just signed today. Like, I don't get it. They've shown their max potential, so I get it that you can lock them in term-wise, or not term-wise like that, like AAV-wise, but like.
But what's the need, especially in the way the league is now? There's so many emerging players. What do you got to lock in a guy for 7 years for?
Yeah, for like a replacement level player that's played in your bottom six, and you can have a prospect in 3 years that's going to be better. It's mind boggling, and I mean this is like going on the Tanev thing. This is like the second year in a row that Rutherford's given up the term to replaceable players that are playing secondary. I mean even bottom tier roles. And Jack Johnson last year got 5 years. I mean, Tanev's a good player, but at 6 years and he's like just over $3 million. That's just way overpayment.
Well, I think the AAV is okay because he's absolutely one of the best bottom six forwards in the league.
But when you add them both together, the term and the AAV, I agree. It's terrible.
I agree with that. But I would if he signed a 2 by whatever AAV that was, no one would bat an eye.
Yeah, exactly.
That is it. It's the length of these contracts, and especially it's got to be a little disconcerting for some guys who might be working their way up the pipe, and they're like, they're watching the roster spots and they're going, all right, this might be an opportunity. This guy's coming up on free agency. You know, he might not. Now there's a 7-year deal for this guy who, you know, and don't get me wrong, maybe they see a little bit more out of a guy from beyond what we see. But when you look at it, there's so many young guys that come up through the system that have so much talent, and you've now eliminated a roster spot for them for 7 years.
Yeah.
You know what that is?
Not great, Bob.
There it is.
Yep. Nailed that one. Moving on. Tyler, what do you got?
Nailed it.
So I got the Sebastian Aho offer sheet.
Ooh.
So first of all, it was on July 1st. You know, you could have waited it out a little bit and used your money other ways. Second of all, it wasn't that much in the compensation wise. So basically, you would have given up a first, a third, or first, second, and a third for next year based on the cap hit. But if you increased it by just another $100,000, you know, you'll give up the 2 firsts and, you know, a second and a third, which is something Carolina probably would have considered even more. And they did the right thing by giving it, you know, sending a lot of money into the on the signing bonus part, you know, try to get Dundon to actually pay him out. But I mean, he just laughed it off. It just wasn't enough. I would have offer sheet him for 10 million AEV, no problem. The caliber that Aho is. So, and you know, you tied up your money, that much money for a week's time, and Carolina kind of just sat and laughed, and they like basically said they're going to match it on the first day, but waited a week for them to actually do it and draw it out.
Well, there was no time, no space. I mean, it basically like this was one of those moves where it was like, oh, thanks, Montreal. Like,
yeah, well, like that's what Dallas said in his press conference. Like, well, now I don't have to negotiate with them, and you know,
right.
So got a lot of headaches for the summer.
You don't have to negotiate it with him, and you basically end up with a guy who has a lot to offer, young player. He has the opportunity to be almost a franchise-esque player. Like Carolina is in need of a face of a franchise.
I think he is that face right now.
And for them to kind of help streamline, this is our big talent. You're paying under $6 million a year for this guy.
Well, he's at 8.4.
Is he at 8.4?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, still, guy who put up 83 points last year and a good two-way forward.
Yeah, I mean, you're
talking along that Bergeron Barkov level.
Yeah, this is a very talented player who can get things done for the Carolina Hurricanes. And at the end of the day, I don't think it matters about what they offered him, but it, like you said, it just wasn't enough worth what the compensation could have been.
Yeah, and you know, try to at least entice Montreal or Carolina to, you know, to even think about like just taking the compensation. But
yeah,
you know, there's still a lot of big RFAs out there, and hopefully we get something else. But it's not looking like it so far.
No. All right, I'm going to take the horn here. So probably this is my – I was telling Bobby earlier, I think I've got a bunch that I don't like. But out of the entire grouping of possibilities, I do not understand the $10 million offer for Sergei Bobrovsky. Do not understand it.
Well, I think is he worth $10 million? Yeah, for the next 3 years.
I don't think so.
No, not even a shot. I mean,
I don't think so.
The term is definitely the bigger issue, I think, than the dollar amount. Out
of curiosity, who are the goaltenders that are making $8 million or more in the NHL?
Price, Lundqvist, Holtby next year, and I think Gibson.
So
they're all over 8.
You're on the money. I mean, it's Carey Price.
Yeah.
Bobrovsky at 10. Lundqvist at 8.5. Tuukka Rask is at 7. Marc-Andre Fleury at 7. John Gibson at 6.4. And again, I love me some John Gibson, but the guy's like he's been on a really declining team, and I'm curious what in the heck they're going to do. Like, are you able to give a guy another contract like that? That's some other players to help him out in front. Hellebuck's at 6'1", and Holtby's at 6'1". Then beyond that, the rest of the group is under 6.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the Florida team, though, from last year, no problem scoring. They just needed a save, and they just overpaid to get what they needed. I
fully agree. I would have loved to have seen that money go into other possibilities. And I think some of it has to come to the extent of like, have you considered the possibility of did you consider the possibility of making a trade to go get somebody who might help you out? Guys like Curtis McElhaney were out there that now he's not a true blue number one, but could you go out and get a guy and then pick him up and do a 1-2 system? Now you got to lean on Bobrovsky, and then who's your backup? Montembeault?
Yeah.
Kind of is your backup in the future of your organization, but you now have a goalie of the future in Bobrovsky at $7 million a year or $10 million a year for the next 7 years?
Yeah.
So I would have loved to have seen them spend the money in a little bit different way, use some assets, kind of move some pieces around. But I know the one thing a lot of people say is the question Q always asks is, who the heck is stopping the pucks? And if you don't have that answer, especially day one of free agency, you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the biggest thing is they have Huberdeau, Barkov, and Trocheck all under $6 million deals for the next 3 years. They can give them. Yeah, and they actually gave them the spending money to go out there and, get a Bobrovsky at $10 million. But for the next 3 years, I don't mind it. After that, it's just a crapshoot. And then after he's draft Spencer Knight in the first round too.
Yep.
What's going to be with his plan? Because he's going to be ready in 3-4 years probably.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens with that. But I like the move for the next 2-3 years. I don't mind it, but we'll see what goes on after that.
I agree with you, Tyler. Sorry, guys. I lost my internet there for like a hot 20 seconds. Don't know what
happened. Kept it locked down?
I figured the show would go on with you, Toaster.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a natural. I was panicking. I was like, please say something. Please say something. Jeez, I don't know what I'm doing.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
But getting all hot bothered over there.
I do agree with you, Tyler. I think that contract is just screaming like in 4 years, 5 years, it's not gonna be good. But for the time being, I mean,
I will say they're
gonna be a playoff team now.
The AAV obviously is your $10 million. They did front load the heck out of this contract. It's 7. The signing bonus is 7.5 the first year. After that, it goes down to 6 for the next 3 years, then 5, and the last 2 years are a 1.5 and a $1 million signing bonus, and the base salary goes up at the bottom end of this to $5 million at the base. So, I mean, you're giving a lot up front very quickly for this guy, but like you're saying, 4 years in, 5 years in, like your signing bonus is going to dip a little bit, so you don't have to spend the money right up front. The salary is what you can send in a buyout and the send in if you really want to go with Spencer Knight and you're not a big fan of how the trade exactly fanned out, and you also don't know how the cap is going to look 5 years from now. That's the biggest question mark for Florida as well. You don't know how much is the increase across that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Let's wrap this up and we'll get into sobriety check. But first, our words from Coach Tony's Hot Sauce.
Sobriety check is brought to you by Coach Tony's Hot Sauce. cthotsauce.com. Just heat and eat. Coach Tony's Hot Sauce. Available at any local grocer in the Rochester, New York area.
All right, folks. You know what that sound is. That's the new theme song, the Sobriety Check, brought to you by Coach Tony's Hot Sauce. Just heat and eat. It is my turn. Give me your worst, folks. Toaster, you're our guest.
Okay.
Choose hockey trivia first. Well, first, before we get into that, have both of you finished your first beers?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
And yes, I would get it.
If this was offered in a bar, yes, I would definitely buy this.
Cool. Time for another beer, boys. I don't have anything to drink, so
This is my second, so.
there you go. With that being said, give me your hockey trivia question, please, sir.
All right, this might take you a second, but I think it's worth it in the long run. So we're talking free agency, obviously, and we're talking the breakdown of these contracts and everything and all the movement. What are the best acquisitions? Well, my favorite part is when guys stick with their teams. Guys stick with their teams for a long time. You don't have any of these problems. So since 2000, and I'm talking they have to have retired after the year 2000, there are only 19 players who have retired from playing the game in the NHL after spending their entire career in one city. 19 players. Can you give me 8, and I will take 5 if you can get 5.
Cool.
So players that have retired after the year 2000 who have played their entire careers with that team and retired with that said team?
Correct.
Number 1 is Patrick Elias.
Yep.
For me. We used to do these types of questions, Toaster.
Dude, I love this.
But then we have retracted back to like one option, yes or no type question because we're just too dumb. But Patrick Elias,
Here's the thing.
Nicholas Lindstrom.
Yep. So there's huge names on this list, but there's some oddballs in there, but I love it.
I can't even think of like players who have retired. I mean, does Ken Danico count? Is he on that list?
Yes, he is on that list. He retired in 2003.
Mr. Devil.
If you're looking for another Devil, you missed one.
I missed one?
Yep.
Well, it's not Marty, son of a bitch. I'm just gonna give myself another minute or two because this is a tough one.
Yeah, it's a tough go.
I got a few for you, Bob. I think you're missing some really big ones out there.
I'll take one, and then that's it.
Yep.
Your favorite player?
Stu Barnes played for a bunch of different teams, Tyler.
No, your favorite player, Joe Sakic.
So
does that
hold on
count because he played for 2 different franchises?
Bingo, because I said one city, so it doesn't count.
All right, never mind.
So hey, I'll give you the 3 exceptions to this rule. Shane Doan is one. Joe Sakic and Jim Slater played for Atlanta and Winnipeg for all of his career.
Okay. The Sedins.
Bingo, that's 2.
Well, that's
so you got
5 for me.
You've got 5. I'll give you bonus points. So you can get an extra 3.
Okay. I got a countdown soundbite. I can't think of anything else.
Stevie Y.
Correct.
Fuck. How many? You said there was 9 total?
There's 19.
Oh, 19. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I'll
give you the full list after we're done.
Let me just try and get one more. I got my 5. You said 5 to 8. So
yep.
I'm taking a win for that one, Tyler.
That's fine. I'll give it to you. This is a hard question.
This is a tough one.
I'm trying to. I was so much more East Coast than I do West Coast, and
the best was getting the Sedins. I was like, if he gets the Sedins, like 5 is nothing. But
I'm done. I'm not wasting any more energy on it.
Right.
Feed me,
Tyler. You got any extra add-ins to this one?
I was gonna say, like, what about a guy like Datsuk?
Datsuk does. Yep, Datsuk counts.
Okay.
Zetterberg.
Bingo.
Zetterberg counts too. All right. Well, then I'm gonna say Johan Franzen if Zetterberg counts.
I don't have Franzen on here.
Okay, because he's in the same
still
boat.
Technically LTIR though, isn't he?
Well, so is Zetterberg.
That's
no,
true.
Zetterberg announced his retirement. I thought.
Unofficially, he's still getting paid.
Oh, that's right. He hasn't actually come out with a public statement.
Yeah.
All right, fine. I'll give you guys a final here. PJ Axelson with Boston Your boy from New Jersey, Sergey Brelin.
Oh,
Sergey.
Yep.
Assistant coach for Binghamton now.
Yep. Eric Daze in Chicago. Rick DiPietro with the Islanders. Milan Hajduk with Colorado. Tomas Holmstrom in Detroit. Yari Lettinen in Dallas. Mario Lemieux in Pittsburgh. Andre Markov. Chris Neal in Ottawa. And Chris Phillips in Ottawa.
Wow. That's a good that's a very good trivia question.
Very good question.
Yep.
All right.
Cheers.
Yeah, nice job. So, all right, I got my hockey one. So, Bob, this Hall of Fame forward was in 3 different transactions that included a Hall of Fame defenseman going back the other way.
So the player that is being traded is a Hall of Famer.
Is a Hall of Fame forward.
And every time he got traded, it was for a Hall of Fame defenseman?
Every single transaction was for a Hall of Fame defenseman.
Wow.
I'll give you a time range.
Yeah, please.
This is in the 90s.
In the 90s.
In the 90s.
God. He was involved in 3 separate ones, you said?
3 separate transactions.
Am I overthinking this? Is this
Yes.
Wayno?
No, it's not Wayno.
Okay. Who is it?
It's Brandon Shanahan.
Wow.
No kidding.
Who are some of the defensemen that he got traded for?
So
Brian Leach was one of them, right?
No, not Leach.
It wasn't him?
So Stevens was compensation for St. Louis signing Shanahan. And then St. Louis traded him to Hartford for Chris Pronger.
Yep.
And then Hartford traded him to Detroit for Paul Coffey and a couple other players.
Really? No.
That's it.
Yeah.
I thought when why did I think he played for Toronto? The Brian Leach portion, I thought he was when he went to Toronto at the very end of his career.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. 1 for 2. All right.
I'll take it. You want to go next? I'll take the last one.
Sure. To Tyler.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I'm bringing it up right now. So it's a soccer question for you, Bobo.
A what?
Soccer question.
Oh, I thought you said sour.
No.
Like, is this going to be offensive?
All right. So who set the MLS record in August 2000 for most goals in a game?
Most goals in a game. I don't think this is a huge ask for a clue, but is he just give me if he's American or not. Just if he's not American, just say
I have
no.
No idea.
Does
I don't know who
his
this
name
is.
look American?
Sure.
What year did you say?
2000.
Oh man.
Is it what's his name? Jeff Cunningham?
No. His name's Clint Mathis.
Clint Mathis. He had a mohawk.
He played for the Metro Stars.
Yes, he did.
How many goals do you have?
He
Yeah.
had 5 goals.
Wow.
A 6-4 win over Dallas in the Cotton Bowl. Whatever that means in soccer.
The Cotton Bowl's a stadium.
Cotton Bowl?
in Texas.
That's where they're playing the Winter
That's playing
Classic.
the Winter Classic.
Oh, it's a stadium. Okay.
Yeah.
I always think of the Cotton Bowl as just like the football
tournament?
championships. Yeah.
No.
I don't know. I'm a hockey guy, right? Big hockey guy.
Awesome.
Other sports, yeah.
Big hockey guy.
I should have known that. That's a good question, Tyler. Good question.
Bob, I got 2 for you.
Oh.
So both are beer related.
Okay. Way to stay on brand.
Hey, I'm just here to help. So PBR was originally just called Pabst, but they changed their name after becoming the first beer to win a blue ribbon at the Chicago World's Fair in what year? I'll give you, if you get it within the decade, I'll take it.
Okay. 1938.
No.
Oh,
Is he close?
how close was I?
You're off by like 40 years.
Oh
No.
shit! Like
1893.
Oh,
Huh. You win some, you lose some.
Yeah. All right. Well, the second one's a little easier.
Okay.
Beer is the third most popular drink in the world. What are the number 1 and number 2 most popular drinks in the world?
Like, are you saying adult beverages,
No.
drinks, or
No,
just
no.
like
Nope,
a
just
fluid that you put into your body?
Fluid you put in your body.
I really want to say water, but like I don't know if that's actually true with some continents that we have on the planet.
Water is correct.
Water's one. Okay.
Water is
Cool.
one.
Is wine the other one?
No. Tea. is the other
tea. Those
Which
British.
is basically water.
one. Tea. It's dirty
I
water.
was gonna say coffee.
Also known as beer. Dirty water.
Well, I would still want 1 for 4. That's good enough.
Starting out 1 for 1 is great.
The rules. Hey, I'm betting 250. That's not bad at all. That'll
Mhm.
keep me in the MLB for my career.
Yeah, well.
But for the rules, Toaster, for the podcast, all you got to do is get 1 question right, and you're on to the next episode.
There we go.
So I'll be back. I'll take that all day.
Is that why Greg ain't around?
Greg's just super busy.
Yeah, I
He's a
figured.
busy guy.
No, not really.
We just wanted to get some. We're not calling you filler content, Toaster, but we needed some content to fill the summer. We'll say it that way because I mean, Tyler and I were talking about this. We'll wrap this up, but like the RFA hype was so hyped up going into this offseason. Nothing has happened.
Nope.
I think Kevin LeBanc has screwed up the market, like we talked about earlier, with
the only
Aho being there and then LeBanc all the way down. So once Mitch Marner goes, everything's going to drop. But eventually these teams got to be like, well, we'll just set our own market, i.e. Mikko Rantanen and players like that, Braden Point. Like he said, he wants to stay in Tampa. What's taking you so long?
What is taking forever? There's a lot of question marks this offseason, and I like vividly, I sit there and I just watch and I'm like, there's a lot that still hasn't happened, and there's nothing that we can all do until it happens. There's just you're just sitting there waiting.
And that's, I mean, this is a conversation for another day, but the NBA, they do their offseason and their salary cap right. I mean, like they have a soft cap with the luxury tax there, with player options and max contracts at 5 years. It's typically a 4 and 1, and that allows players, huge players, to go somewhere new every 4 to 5 years if they even want to. I mean, like LeBron signed like a 2-year with a 2-year option of like 1-year options. I mean, so like imagine if Connor McDavid at the end of his contract was just like, no.
At the catch of this again is, and the catch of that conversation is, if they want to.
Correct.
You still have guys, Damian Lillard, who want to hang around because they want to build something out of nothing, or they want to be a part of something that's a little bit different. And it still gives guys the options to do that. It still gives general managers the opportunity to hang on to guys for long term if they'd like. But again, that's a whole another conversation.
We'll have you on another time so we can talk more about that. But thank you for joining, Toaster. As always, we got to get you on more than just once a summer,
dude.
Now that you're in the AHL, if I know you went through your schedule, you're not coming to Rochester, but we'll have to get you on. If you do anything with your training camp or anything like that, we'll get you on. Let us know.
If you guys are in for a trip to Toronto, I'll be up there.
Oh,
it's a good city.
It's a great city.
It's a great city. If you're not like in and out, and if you stay for like a day or two,
I want to say we're in for a back-to-back. Hold on. Give me a hot second.
No worries. I'll talk while you look. If for those types of situations, when you are an announcer and not a player and you got back-to-backs, what do you do?
That's a great question. Actually, even more so than the what do you do on back-to-backs question is the what am I doing during the off-season question. But the back-to-backs one is a huge one. Back-to-backs they're tough. They're tough just as much on me as they are for players, because let's be honest, the same kind of conversation. Like if we were to have a conversation one day and 90% of what we did was to talk about the next game that was happening. Like if we did a full preview on the pod of hey, tomorrow's game, like who's ready, blah, blah, blah. The second that game ended, everything you wrote or everything we talked about is irrelevant. There's a whole set of new storylines. There's a whole set of new everything. So you have to update all the stats, all of the game notes, get ready for the next game, change your mindset about how things break down, research the rest of the league. There are a lot of nights where on those back-to-backs, you're up pretty late and you're waking up pretty early, getting ready for morning skate. You're waiting.
I thought you'd have a team doing that for you by now. You're in the AHL. You're a big show now.
No. Hey,
you can have interns do that for you.
I'll give you the best advice that I ever got. It's the AHL. It's still minor league hockey.
I know. I'm just fucking.
Still minor league hockey. Lipper,
your transportation story clearly elaborated on that.
Yeah. So we play back-to-back in Toronto.
What days?
January 10th and 11th. Nothing like Toronto in the winter.
No. Well, at least
I'm sorry. I take that back. That's home. We play Toronto at home that day. When do we go to Toronto?
Well, that'll be a nice, pleasant temperature in Austin, Texas.
We go to Toronto. Actually, here's a really good one. We do a full Canadian swing. Manitoba on the 11th and the 13th, and then we show up in Toronto for the 16th and the 17th. So 16th and 17th of November.
Hey, that's close to my birthday.
It's a Saturday, Sunday. Head up on Friday night. You know, you guys have a day of it. Quarter pod.
Hey, that would be sweet. That would be absolutely awesome.
You know?
I guess we'll wrap it up there, and then we could talk about that as we get closer. Pleasure as always, Toaster. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me on the pod.
You're the first two-time signature guest on the pod, rightfully so.
Yeah. Well, heck, you guys are giving me the bump, so I gotta stick around.
I don't know if our bump is as big as other competing podcasts bump, but we'll take it. We'll take it. So, thanks, Tyler. Thanks. I'll see you soon. Everyone else listening, stay cool out there.
It's hot,
humid summer is
almost
the worst.
Heat stroke in Boston on Saturday.
And we're not even down in Texas, and we're complaining.
Dude, it was 99 today.
Fuck that.
I guess, Tyler, our outro will definitely just sum it up. It's been real.
It's been fun.
But it hasn't been real fun. And we'll see you next time, folks. Thanks for stopping by.
Stay cool out there, boys and girls.
It's been a hot, hot baby tonight.